Hello everyone and welcome to this new lesson. So guys, we are going to talk about chapter 7 in this particular video of class 6 history NCERT. So I am going to tell you all the important points which chapter tells us. Okay. So first of all, chapter begins with an important thing, that is who was Gautam Buddha. Okay. So Gautam Buddha, as we all know, he was also known as Siddharth. His original name was Siddharth and he was a Kshatriya by Varna, and he belonged to a particular sect of Shakyagan. Okay, and he attained enlightenment under the people tree that is in the Bodh Gaya, Bihar, and he gave his first sermon at Sarnath, and he taught people the basic principle that life is full of sufferings and these sufferings are because of our desires. Okay, and he taught in the common language, and that common language was Prakrit. Okay, because at that point of time the language of the higher classes were Sanskrit. Okay, and uh, the people who belonged to the lower varna were actually not able to understand Sanskrit, so he adopted a common language which each and everyone could understand. So he adopted Prakrit as a medium of teaching, you can say. Okay, and he passed away at Kusinagra. So these are the important facts which you should remember, which NCERT tells us from very basic. Okay, so we are doing very basic points. If, for example, if anyone who has not read about like Gautam Buddha or have not read history or has forgotten the history because due to the science background or commerce background, so that's why we are covering it from the basics, although we are supposed to study Buddhism in detail in the higher classes. Okay, so another thing which chapter tells us is that what are Upanishad. So Upanishad literally means approaching and sit near. Okay, so these are the texts which are conversation between the teachers and the students. Okay, so most important Upanishad thinker were men, but there are certain women thinkers also. Okay, for example, Gargi was famous woman Upanishad thinker. Okay, another important thing which chapter tells us is who was Satyakama Jabala. Satyakam Jabala was a slave and he was accepted by Brahmin teacher Gautam. Jabala was named after his mother Jabali and he became a great thinker later on. Okay, then chapter tells us that Panini was a famous personality who prepared grammar for Sanskrit. Okay, so you must remember these basic facts in order to build a strong foundation. Then chapter tells us who was Mahavir. So Vardhaman Mahavir was a Kshatriya prince, same as Gautam Buddha or Siddhartha, you can say. He belonged to the Vajji Sangh and he taught in Prakrit. Okay, he also adopted the common language and he used Pali also sometimes. Then the followers of Mahavira came to be known as Jains. Okay, and this term Jain particularly is derived from a term called Jinnah, which means the conqueror. Okay, then we are supposed to study that what was Sangh. Okay, so Sanghs were basically, you can say, the associations. For example, those who left their homes in order to gain the true knowledge, they became the part of Sangha. And Vinaypitika is a Buddhist text which actually describes the rules which were made for Buddhist sanghas and they were followed by the monks there. Okay, and both women and men could join sangha. Earlier only men were allowed, but later on women were also permitted. Okay, so men were called bhikkhus while the women were called bhikkhunis. Okay, so you must remember these important terms. So another important thing for us to remember is what are viharas. Okay, so bhikkhunis or bhikkhus, they used to stay in viharas, and these viharas were made of wood, bricks, or sometimes they were made inside the caves in the hills. Okay, so we will talk about these viharas later on. There are viharas, chaityas, and other things also. We will deal with them in the higher classes NCERT. Okay, so what is meant by ashrama? Ashrama is a concept in Hindu religion, you can say. Okay, so Brahmins developed four ashrama system which represent stage of life. They were Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanprasth, and Sannyas. Okay, so they are written in a chronological order. So apart from this, another important thing which chapter tells us about is Zoroastrianism, or the Zoroaster. Who was he? So he was an Iranian prophet, and his teachings were recorded in a book called as Avesta. And his basic principles or the basic teachings included three things, that is good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Okay, so these were the basic teachings. So Zoroastrianism became an important religion in Iran, and many Zoroastrianism followers migrated from Iran and settled down in the coast of Gujarat and Maharashtra, who later on became Parsis. Okay, so they are Parsis, you can say. So that's all we are supposed to know in the chapter 7 of classics history NCERT, guys. And do note down the important terms and points and keep them on a separate paper. Now we will meet in the next lesson.